All right. What do you think is gonna be the next biggest thing with AI?
I think what we've seen in products like ChatGPT and some of these really large language models is we've seen the potential for what they can do. And we've
Hmm.
seen some really cool demos, and we've probably all had fun playing around with
Hmm.
it. But I don't think most of us have figured out how we're going to use it every day.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
we haven't figured out how it's
yeah.
going to be, yeah, how it's going to become like a day-to-day tool for us. And so to me, with the next, when I've been around moments in time where like really cool new inventions or research innovations change what's possible, it always takes a few years to figure out what we're all actually going to do with that. So
Hmm.
what I think is really exciting is to imagine like how could generative AI become a part of our like day to day? How could
Hmm.
it allow us to do a lot of things a lot faster than we're able to
From
now?
from what I've been seeing is a lot of these like chat programs, they've been adding AIs to like
Yeah,
based off ChatGPT, like just like a new contact, like Gemini. And
yeah,
then Snapchat also has its
yeah,
own AI
yeah,
questionable. WhatsApp also,
yep,
Discord used to have one. So I
yeah.
think
And I think what that shows is that everyone's trying to figure it out. Like
yeah,
we don't really know. Like I don't think users know what they
yeah,
want.
yeah.
Like, do they really want an AI bot in their social media experience that they can chat with, that they can like have as like a friend who they can communicate with? Do they want an AI that's going to help them be funnier in what they write to their friends, or share better pictures or touch them up more? Like I
Yeah.
don't we don't really know what we
Google's been
want.
doing a lot
So
with that. Yeah,
yeah,
they have all these editing features, and I don't have access to it yet, but there's this I've something about messages that it'll rewrite your message into like Shakespeare or more funny or more professional.
yeah, and there's a lot of really neat stuff going on. But I feel like in the next kind of 2 to 3 years, we're actually going to figure out how to use it. Like
Yeah.
right now, it's sort of a cool thing we all go try. But how do we actually use it?
And I
And
think yeah, I think that like it's been getting a bit boring with like ChatGPT, large language model, and then Gemini, another large language model. Just like large language model after another. But I think something I like about like Grammarly is that like when you're writing like with Grammarly Go, like you can just instead of going to a new tab, going to ChatGPT, going to Gemini, you can just ask it to like do it right whatever wherever you are.
yeah, and I
So
think
I
it's
think
one of the things we've really thought was important was to be with you everywhere you write, to not make you do something different or go somewhere else. And one of the things we're doing now that everyone will start seeing more in the next few months is when you use the like generative capabilities in Grammarly, it's going to increasingly sound like you wrote it yourself.
yeah.
Like we're trying to capture your voice. Like, do you use big words or small words? Are you casual? Are you formal?
I think I think yeah, that's
Uh,
one of the most biggest problems with like the current AIs because like
yeah,
I mean if I was to turn in an essay with ChatGPT, my teacher would know that it was not my writing at all.
exactly right. Because it seems
Yeah,
totally different. And,
yeah,
especially for people using it at work, like if you want ChatGPT or an AI to help you get started on something, you don't want to have to then go rewrite it so it sounds like
yeah.
you.
I think Devin. I don't know if you've heard of Devin. Have you heard of it?
Mm, no.
I think it's more like programming. Like I think it's like I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I've not done a lot of research on it, but I think it's like gonna replace programmers.
Yeah.
I think that's the only like first specific AI like large language model I've seen so far.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think programming is a kind of language that is much more structured than
Yeah,
spoken languages.
yeah,
And
it is definitely.
because of that, it's a lot easier for it to be quite useful very quickly. And yeah, one of my observations is like a part-time software developer is I don't really need to be a part-time software developer anymore because I can ask, a reasonably large language model to say, oh yeah, I want to create an app that does X, Y, and Z. Like, give
Yeah,
me a first version of the app, and 2 minutes later, I have it. It's
yeah,
really cool.
yeah.
And I think as we all learn more about these models and how they work, it'll be able to do that for like written communication
Yeah.
as
I
well as
mean,
it already does it for coding.
yeah, I think like I mean, I have a little bit of programming knowledge, but I think the biggest problem for me is like, I mean, it gets a little boring. I mean, it's exciting because you know that you can make something cool, like you said, but you're more interested in the actual thing. So, like, just the programming, like seeing this massive text box, like, it gets boring. So I think like AI just being taking over that boring job makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, yeah, and good programming is hard to do. And
Yeah,
it takes a while. It takes
a lot of
practice.
time.
You got to develop the skill. And yeah, the nice thing about getting a little help from AI is it can get you there faster, which is
Yeah.
really cool because it's going to allow a lot more people to use code to solve problems for themselves, which is great.
Moving back up to Grammarly, like, I mean, it's like this great software. I mean, it like changes your sentences. I mean, like makes the sentences better. Like, why don't think everyone has it? Why doesn't it?
Well, I think fair number of people do. I think a lot of it is people don't know about it yet. You know,
Mm,
we tell the story pretty widely on like YouTube and some other places, but we haven't really told the story that widely. And one of the things we're finding is as we work more with like companies and schools to roll it out to all their employees, they love it, or all their students in schools because they love it because they get
yeah,
to, they don't necessarily have to learn about it themselves, figure out how to install it themselves. It's right there. So,
I
this
remember
is
when
one
I
of the,
was yeah,
go
I
ahead.
remember when I was in I think it was 2018, 2019. I would be on my school laptop and I would get a Grammarly ad like
Yeah.
every ad would be a Grammarly ad.
Yeah.
Like,
I have a 16-year-old daughter who regularly complained to me about how many Grammarly ads she saw on YouTube, which of course I replied, maybe you're watching too much YouTube. Um, but eventually, in part because she would rib me about how many ads she saw, we were able to work with the team at YouTube to try and reduce the number of ads that any one person saw, which is good for everybody.
yeah, I
So yeah,
mean,
I think we have to get the word out. Like
yeah,
when you're creating something new, like when you invent something, by definition, nobody's heard of it.
yeah,
And so part of the challenge is that you could have the coolest thing in the world,
but
but
no one should
if
hear of it.
nobody knows about it, then it doesn't matter. So you have to
Yeah,
both be able to build something cool and then be able to figure out how to tell its story in ways that really connect with people.
yeah,
And those are like, it's really hard to do both of those things. That's why doing startups is hard
yeah,
because you have
yeah,
to be able to do both really well. And that's not easy.
and yeah. Part of that is like just getting a good product, but then also you have to,
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah,
like you have to start with a good product, but then you
mm,
have to get it out there.
yeah.
And no matter how good the product is, if you don't get it out there, you're not going to get a
What
lot
would
of
you say is
momentum.
harder, starting the actual product or getting people to hear of it?
That's a good question. I think they're both really hard, like, especially in a field like AI where the science is changing really fast. Like the
Yeah,
research and science around AI is moving so quick right now. It's scary, but it's so cool to see
yeah,
how
yeah,
fast the field is moving. It's great. So it's really hard to stay on top of the field. It's really hard to keep up with all the advancements that people are doing. It's hard to drive those advancements yourself. Like we have a group of researchers who are so smart and know
mm,
so much math and know so much computer science and they know so much about language and they're able to put all those things together into really neat things. But it's like you got to understand the technology,
yeah,
but then you need to like understand users and
yeah,
what users might actually need. And sometimes that takes a different personality. Like some people who are really good at understanding technology, they might love the technology, but they're not as interested in naturally like how people might respond to it. And then you have to figure out how to tell the story. So I
yeah,
actually think they're all hard. That's why most startups, most small businesses don't make it because it's so hard to piece all these skills together, and it takes a lot of toughness to stick it out
yeah,
because what you're going to try, you're going to fail a lot more than you're going to succeed, and you have to either really love the idea or just be ready to hear no a lot and keep on trying.
yeah. I think, I mean, about the marketing part, I mean, it's like since AI is now the cool thing, people just put the word AI on any product, and it's kind of like made me start to ignore the word AI because like
Yeah.
any company, like even if it has nothing to like, maybe it would be like the most simple like if statement, and it's like, oh yeah, we have the latest AI. Like
Right.
it's just kind of hard to now tell the difference between it's actually a new thing, like this is actually AI, and this is something that yeah I've not seen before, and they're just throwing the word, they're just throwing it around.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that definitely happens. And that happens in, in lots of industries at lots of
Yeah.
times. Like when the internet was getting started, for example, everybody just added .com to their name and they thought that made a big difference. And yeah, I think AI is going through something now like that. Mobile was like that. Like when
Mm.
smartphones first came out, everyone was like, oh, we're a mobile first company. But the same company doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's one of the hard things about telling stories is most people are tempted to exaggerate when they tell a story. They're tempted to just tack on AI to their message. But the problem is that causes a lot of users and all of us to maybe ignore them a little bit or think
Yeah.
they're probably exaggerating. So that's like a really hard balance to strike. But in the end, like what matters most is like, are you solving some problem for someone better than anyone else?
Yeah.
And
What do you,
what
what do you think?
technologies you use, AI and other
Yeah.
things don't really matter as much. Like, are you like, for us, it's like, are we helping people communicate better?
I think one
And
of
it
the most
doesn't,
important I think one of the most important things is like what Grammarly did is they've made sure that like it's accessible like anywhere. Like I mean it's on every like document like I use. I mean it's just you get the app and it's like and you open a text box and it's gonna be there. I
yeah,
think that was definitely a useful part. What do you think was like
yeah.
the most like the key selling part when Grammarly started? Like what do you think was the main thing that got people to like it?
I think one of the things which actually made a big difference goes back to what you just said, which is when Grammarly first got launched, it was only a paid product. It wasn't
Oh.
free. Um, and for the first 5 or 6 years, as they were tuning the project and figuring it out, you could only use it if you paid for it.
Hmm.
And then, I think in large part because they just wanted more people to be able to access it. They didn't want it to be limited to only people who could pay for it. So they kind of tweaked the product a bit so they could have a free product. And so I think that thing in Grammarly that there is a free version that doesn't do everything that the paid
Yeah.
version does, but does a lot of great stuff. Um, that allows us to make it available to anyone. And I think that's one of the easiest things. We make it really easy for you to
Yeah.
try the product as a result. Because one of the things I found a lot in technology is sometimes things are so new, people don't even imagine what they can do for them.
Yeah.
And if you can give people the chance to use it really easily, hit a few
Yeah.
buttons, you don't have to pay anything, just try it. Then they can start to understand it. So yeah, I'd say the fact that we have a free version that like tens of millions of people use, like that really helps us get the word out there. And I think it's probably been one of the biggest things that has helped us grow.
When was the free one version added?
So I think it was 2015 that they
Hmm.
first started rolling it out. So company's 15 years old. Just actually on Monday, we had our 15th anniversary, had a huge party and a giant cake in our office, which was neat. Um, but yeah, so it was about 6 years in 2015 that they rolled that out. And, we're constantly trying to balance what's available for free with what might be only available paid. And what we try and do is push more and more to free by adding new and cool stuff so that we make the free product really compelling, but make the paid one really compelling too.